Okay, here we go. Oh. No.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Community Board 8 Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. My name is Kelly Buford, and I am the chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee. At this time, I will call roll of the Traffic and Transportation Committee members to ensure we have quorum. Kelly Buford is present, Sylvia Alexander. Present. Chris Calhoun.
Present.
Ingrid De Leon. David Gelman. Mary Ellen Gibbs.
Present.
Josh Land.
Here.
Eliani Lobos. Ted Morris. I do note that we have quorum. We can proceed with the meeting. At this time, I would like to welcome all of the committee members, the community members, and the elected officials and their officers, as well as our colleagues and friends at the Department, New York City Department of Transportation, who will be with us for the duration of the meeting. For my chair's report, I would like to remind the community that the office receives a number of closings or construction projects that are taking place throughout the week regarding utility companies and things of that nature. And they typically post them to the community board social pages, and I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that that information was there. I would also like to ask Josh, since he has his computer open, if you can take the minutes. Okay, thank you. As part of the practice with the Traffic and Transportation Committee, we try to rotate the minutes, and Josh has graciously accepted my offer this week. I wanted to thank Chris Calhoun for doing last meeting's minutes, and with that, we can move on, in the interest of time, to the agenda, the full agenda. Because I know there are a number of community members on the call who have a lot of questions for DOT and who are interested in the presentations that DOT will put forth this evening. So with that, we can move forward with the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the committee meeting minutes of the meeting held on September 21, 2023. I ask if any committee member has any questions or comments regarding the minutes to direct them to me. Hearing no questions, then, may I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Motion. Accept.
Second? Thank you. Does anyone oppose?
I don't.
Does anyone oppose acceptance? Okay. Hearing nothing, then, the motion carries and the minutes are approved. We can then move forward with item 4 on the agenda, which is the presentation of the West 254th Street Temporary Pedestrian Plan and the final capital plan, and with that, I will turn it over to our friends at DOT.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dorisa Cruz. I am the Deputy Bronx Borough Commissioner for the New York City Department of Transportation. I'm joined tonight by some of my team, Renee Luciano and Jesus Soto, as well as from our capital team, Harjinder Singh and Hayden Benjamin, and our Deputy Director of our School Safety Division, Elena Lunyova. We will be presenting our temporary pedestrian path for West 254th Street. I will ask if we can hold questions till the end of the presentation, and if we can give Elena permission to share her screen, she can go ahead and get started.
Which one is Elena?
Elena, you have permission to share screen now.
Can you raise your hand, please?
Did he do it? Pablo do it already?
Here.
Reese's not speaking. You just muted everyone.
You're muted.
Pablo just muted Dorisa.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I just want to make sure Elena is also unmuted so that she can go through the proposal.
Because she's sharing, yeah.
Thank you.
Did you do it already? I didn't, that's why. Stop, backside out and put it later. Yeah, I'll do it. I get it.
Hold on.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so,
Read it though.
okay, great. So quick introduction. My name is Elena Lenyova. I'm a Deputy Director of School Safety Unit, and I will talk to you today about the interim safety improvements that we are in the process of installing now on West 54th Street. So we're doing work between on West 54th Street between Railroad Terrace and Arlington Avenue. This came from a request from SAR Academy. They had a lot of safety concerns because the street is a narrow two-way roadway that is missing sidewalk, and they have a lot of kids walking to and from school most days of the week. There are several issues with West 54th Street in its existing conditions. There are no sidewalks that would provide safe pedestrian access to kids. There is poor visibility due to steep hill and curving condition of the roadway. And so we are also planning to do capital construction of sidewalks here that will hopefully start in 2025. And these are interim improvement before the capital project would start. So this is a cross section of the roadway that shows you Railroad Terrace between Arlington Avenue. The roadway varies in width here between 28 and 33 feet. And essentially, we are proposing to install a pedestrian path along the north curb of the roadway with flexible delineators. These are vertical elements, plastic light reflective sticks that we install to separate pedestrians from traffic. So it will be a little more clear how this looks in this photo. This is a very similar treatment that we installed in Queens. So basically, as you can see, flexible delineators divide the space between vehicles and pedestrian and provide safe pedestrian access to this for the students. Here is another example of such path that we installed a few years ago in the Bronx. This is a pretty standard treatment that we utilize when we need to provide additional pedestrian space next to big institutions like schools that need some extra safe space for kids to walk in. And when the capital project comes, this will be replaced by regular 5 feet sidewalks along each side of the roadway. This is pretty much it. I made the presentation very short so that we have time for your questions.
Thank you. Before we take questions from the community, I would just like to go over a few of the housekeeping rules as far as questions are concerned. What we typically do at the meetings is we allow the committee members to ask questions first, and we will ask the community if they have any questions. All individuals are asked to hold their comments to 2 minutes, to limit their comments to 2 minutes, particularly when we have agendas where there are a lot of people that may wish to speak. And I will advise individuals when their time is up. And once their time is up, I'm going to ask them to yield. And then I will call on the next person who can speak, and we will continue that. And if you've already asked your question, or someone else has already asked your question, I ask that you please not ask your question, given the amount of time that we have, because we do have limited time. Our goal is to be out of here by, that clock is wrong, by 9 o'clock. That clock is wrong. No, it's right, okay, okay, it's right, okay, and by 9 o'clock,
How many minutes do you want? 2?
2 minutes. 2 minutes, please. And with that being said, I would like to ask if any committee member has any questions for DOT. Ashland?
Won't there be a lot of cars coming in to drop and pick up? How is that plan handled?
Most of the children arrive in buses and by feet. If the vehicles drop off kids on school, most of them go into campus.
Got that, because I can't hear you.
Is there currently parking there, and would this proposal take away parking?
Yes, this proposal takes away 13 parking spots.
How many?
13.
Any other committee member have any questions? No questions from those, from committee members in the room. We can then ask Bob Bender.
Thank you very much, Kelly. And thank you for the presentation. I do have a couple of questions. I'm very familiar with this street because I walk down it the mornings that I commute to work on Metro North. There are only 2 streets that provide access to the area down by the river, 254th and 261st. So it's an important street. I'm unclear on, first of all, you've already made some changes to the street. You've introduced a center line down the street. You've introduced some stop signs and some crosswalks. And you've also delineated the pedestrian area with striping. But I thought I heard you say that the sidewalk would be installed on the northern side of West 254th. But then I thought I also heard you say the sidewalk would be on both sides of West 254th. So can you clarify that situation, please?
Yes, of course. The temporary pedestrian path that we are in the process of installing will be only along the north curb. And when the capital project starts in 2025, the plan is to build out proper concrete sidewalks on each side of the roadway.
So this would be the standard sidewalk raised a couple of inches above the grade of the street, and whatever the standard width is, I don't know exactly what it is. On both sides, correct?
Yes, it would be minimal standard width on both sides of the roadway, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Randy Martos, I saw your hand earlier. Do you have a question? Find her.
Thank you. I think Bob actually, or you just answered it, because it was our understanding that there was going to be a permanent sidewalk installed, but I just heard you say it was going to begin in 2025.
That is the plan right now, yes.
And the 13 spots, what street was that? Was that taken from a bunch of areas or on 254th?
No, it's only on 254th. There are 2 spots that 2 locations where we had to take away parking, and that would be one in front of SAR Academy, 9 spots. They were supportive of the change, and there were 4 spots that were taken on south curb of West 254th Street at Arlington Avenue.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. In the room? Yes, in the room. Hi.
Hello?
Hello.
Any
Hi.
guests in the
Guests
room?
in the room, you have questions? Any questions?
You have any questions?
Introduce yourself and please. Your
My
question.
name is Deborah Schiavo, and I live on 254th.
HIAB.
I'm curious, I'm sorry, I have my hearing aids in, so if I'm asking something that was answered already, I apologize. I'm interested in the spots, the parking spots that were taken away on the corner, Netherland and 254th, both on the east end of that and the west end, all on the south side of 254th, between Netherland, Arlington. 3 spots at one end and maybe 2 spots at the other. Don't understand about those, and then again at 254, on the south side, going down to the river, there are many, many spots that are gone. Very hard to park there. So we are missing, I would say, depending upon the size of the cars, we're missing something from 7 to 10 spots. There's a lot of spots, people who don't have a driveway. I'm just curious why those spots were taken away.
So the spots, I can speak to these 13 spots that were taken away. I'm not aware of any others. These spots were taken away so that we can install sidewalks and so that we also still are able to provide vehicular access. The issue with West 254th Street is that it is a very narrow two-way roadway. The typical width here ranges from 28 to 33 feet. And in order to accommodate both 2 moving lanes and 2 parking lanes, the minimum required standard width is 34 feet. So really, if we're keeping 2 moving lanes, which we understood was the desire of the community, we're only able to accommodate parking on one side at most of the locations. And also, as we visited, we're working on design of this street. We had to remodel everything. Basically, we always model for FDNY and emergency access. So the spots in the corners that were removed to accommodate turning vehicles. My understanding is that there were existing no parking anytime regulations east of Arlington Avenue, and they were switched to no standing anytime. That was done for the same reason, to ensure that travel access is accommodated.
Jabo, does that answer your question?
Sorry, I really don't understand. If somebody here understands and can explain it to me, that's fine, I don't understand.
It's big. Two-way street, they need 34 feet. Sidewalk.
The street is a substandard, narrow two-way street.
Substandard width. In order to put a sidewalk in, they have to move everything.
Well, I just wanted to thank for all the people that I represent from my building. I don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't know where we're supposed to go. They already took away parking on one side a while ago, so we only have parking on one side anyway. We used to have parking on 2 sides. Now we have very, very, very few places to go. I don't know.
Elena and Teresa, can you please get back to us regarding with a concrete answer as to why the additional parking spaces were removed from that area, please?
May.
One moment, please. I'm waiting for them to respond.
Teresa needs to be unmuted. I think she's trying to say something.
Oh, okay.
Hold on, we'll
Hold on, Teresa.
Where is she? In the dock?
There she is. She is.
All right.
Okay, great. So yeah, we can follow up with the information that Elena provided about turning radiuses and why they were needed to accommodate the parking removal. We can do that.
Thank you. Sir?
Yeah. I understand on here, this is a hill, and these parking spots were eliminated. There are 3 parking spots across the street over here that were also eliminated.
Okay.
That don't seem to have anything to do with the expansion of the street.
And when you say, hold on one second, the waiting room is sort of crowding my eyes. When you say over, that is Arlington, just
That's
Arlington, yes.
This is 254th Street.
Right.
If you go in this direction, you're going towards SAR. You're going in this direction, you're going to Riverdale Avenue.
Okay.
There were 3 spots here that were eliminated.
Mhm.
That don't seem to have anything to do with the expansion. There's a sign here that says, no parking anytime.
Okay.
There were
Well,
3
it says-
spots right there,
It
So
says
they
no
were daylighted. Those,
standing.
those,
no standing.
they were changed to no standing, and that's what's referred to as daylighting, and that's to allow for people to see around the corners.
Oh, I see.
Around the corners.
Yeah, he said something about garbage trucks or something trying to.
Garbage trucks, emergency vehicles, even other passenger vehicles, right? That is very difficult if you have, particularly in areas where
Dangerous too.
topography is a little zigzaggy, as 254th Street is, for you to see what's coming, and it gives you a better line of sight.
I understand, thank you.
So that's why that happened.
I have a very short thing to say here. On the corner of 254th and Netherland, there's a no standing sign with an arrow that points into the street. I mean, there's no standing in the street. The arrow is supposed to point towards the river.
I don't know, maybe
I
not.
mean, nobody knows what it means.
Okay, thank you. Janisa? Can you ask her to unmute?
Hi, I'm sorry, just because I have, my time is a little cut. Is this meeting based on this project itself, or there's other projects that would be covered on on the agenda, or I just want to know just ahead?
Okay, the other matters on the agenda that's scheduled to be on the agenda is the presentation of the curb management program. And then the rest of it are questions that we have for DOT based off of prior meetings and any issues that committee members may have, any new issues that committee members may wish to address with DOT.
Or new
Does
business?
that
Oh, okay,
answer
'cause-
your question?
Sort of, I just want to know if I'm in Orloff, and I would like to know because they're doing like no parking for both sides for a day, and that we're gonna lose parking space. So I just want to know if that's part of the agenda today or no?
You can raise that under new business.
New business?
We have to
Okay.
follow the format for this meeting, please.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to question. Thank you.
And
Okay.
if, Janisa, if we
Yes.
do not get to you, you can also, email your question to the office, and we can also get a response that way, okay? If you have to drop from the call, okay?
Okay, thank you much.
Welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. My pleasure. Are there any other questions for DOT regarding the 254th Street, capital plan? Thank you, One question, or, hand raised. Mr. Safdie?
Hey there. So thank you very much to the DOT and the community board for putting this together. So my question really relates to the permanent sidewalk. So from the presentation, it sounds like there are certain elements that are final, meaning it seems like there are sidewalks on both sides that's been determined, and that the city wants to retain two-way traffic. So if that is the case, if those elements are finalized, then is there a way to actually install sidewalks, keep the parking, whatever parking there is, keep the two-way traffic, and not take property away from property owners at front 254th Street?
Teresa, Sarah? Teresa or Elena, can you please answer, respond to Mr. Safdie? Thank you. She is speaking. We're sorry, Teresa.
I'm so sorry. Out of habit, I always mute myself, but I'll keep myself unmuted. Sorry.
That's a good habit.
So we're still in the design phase. The goal is to have two sidewalks on each side. And so that's what Elena's referencing. Once we finalize the design, we would be coming back to the community to share exactly what the plan is. And so I don't have much more to share just because we're still in design. And so I can't really speak too much to what the final design is going to be.
Understood, and thank you. Just to be clear, are there any elements to the final design that are pretty much a desired outcome? So for instance, to have sidewalks on both sides, is that like pretty much set in stone, or to kind of
That is the goal, yes.
traffic?
That's
So
the
the goal-
that's the goal, and we're trying to maintain the 2 ways of traffic as well. Yes.
And the parking, okay. And what is the minimum width of a street that you can have sidewalks, two-way traffic, and parking?
Wait, I'm sorry, repeat the question?
Well, I'm just wondering, what is, from the DOT's perspective, what is the minimum width of a street that you would allow with parking, I guess, on one side and two-way traffic?
I can get back to you with those numbers unless if Elena or our capital team has anything to add to that. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get back to you.
Thank you, Teresa. Mr. Greenwald?
Hi, I have a couple of questions. The first question is between Palisade Avenue and the railroad. Is that that looks like that's going to remain one way, is that correct?
Yes.
So is that still no parking there, or is that going to become, you're going to take those signs down, that's going to become parking allowed?
We have not made any parking changes to between Railroad and Palisade. Whatever is there, is there.
Okay. So then it's no parking on the north side of the street or the south side of the street. So then my question is, given that it's one way and that there's so much space both on the north side and the south side, do you think it's still absolutely necessary to put the plastic dividers up, given that it's not that much traffic and you have now a lot of space for pedestrians on either side? You have a sidewalk on one side and you have 10 feet separated by a double white line.
I'm sorry, so you're asking if whether we consider it necessary to extend the sidewalk down to Railroad Terrace? Is that the question?
No, that's not the question right now. Do you think that you really need to put the plastic pylons? That's not the exact word, I apologize. But you need to put those up, given that it's not the acute problem that it is up north between SAR and Riverdale Avenue, where there is no room for the children to walk. On the south from Palisade down the hill, there's plenty of room for people to walk.
I understand. So in terms of safety, especially because we don't actually have the concrete sidewalks up, we would want to ensure with delineators that the pedestrians are separated from the roadway. And that's just standard practice around the city. I don't know if Elena has anything she wants to add.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they provide extra level of protection and visibility. They're light reflective.
No, but for those of us who live in the neighborhood as a rural neighborhood, they're not the most attractive. So I understand where you absolutely need to protect the children, but down, going south, going towards the river, where you have plenty of room to walk, that doesn't seem to be solving the same problem.
We would maintain the delineators anywhere that we're installing any sort of pedestrian space.
Okay. And for the ultimate project, the construction project, are you committed to having sidewalks on both sides of the street?
That is the goal, yes. But we'd be coming back to the community board once we actually have a full design so we can talk through the elements.
Are you planning on putting drainage with catch basins down on 254th Street?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are you planning on burying the utilities, or those can still remain above ground?
That piece I'm not sure, so I don't want to misspeak, but there will be changes to the utilities. And like I said, once we have a final design, we'll come back and talk about those elements with the community.
Thank you, Teresa.
Mhm.
Does any community member have, does any other community member have questions regarding the 254th Street Railroad Terrace, Arlington Avenue plan?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if there were any, if there were any future plans to have a grade separated sidewalk.
When you say grades, what do you
Sidewalk,
mean?
a concrete sidewalk.
Yes, that would be coming as part of the capital
2020
project.
plan. That's part of this capital plan that's scheduled for full completion in 2025.
Thank you.
Just to
Great.
clarify, not completion in 25, it would be starting in
Well,
25.
it's initiation. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Teresa.
so yeah.
Thank you.
No
Sorry.
problem.
Sorry. Any other questions regarding this project? Thank you. Then we can move on then to the next presentation. Is Elena also presenting, the curb management?
No, so, oh, sorry, Farah.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we actually don't have a presentation for CB8 regarding our curb management action plan. What I can do is I can share the report after this meeting so that you guys can take a look. It is a pretty dense report and it's something we only released in September. We don't have any current plans for CB8 as part of this action plan, but once we do, I'm happy to come back so that you guys can provide some feedback.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And can you just give us a brief introduction to the plan, to the program?
Sure,
Just in
so.
case we are impacted by that?
Sure. So the curb management action plan is a way for us to kind of better regulate the curb. Curb access is always in demand, but there are different uses throughout the city that we're trying to, now that we've developed an actual toolkit, we're trying to better coordinate how we're addressing curb issues. And so one of the things as part of the plan was the parking meter changes, the rate increases. And yeah, so it's learning how to better manage the curb throughout the city. Happy to take any suggestions if there's any locations where maybe loading zones are needed, or if there's any sort of parking meter. It's usually something that we use for commercial corridors. But happy to, if you have any feedback based on that and based on the report that I'm going to send you, happy to take that. And like I said, we'll be back if we have anything for CB8. Every community is different, so not all of our toolkit items are going to work everywhere. So we want to be sensitive to make sure that we're making good choices in the locations that we're going to make changes.
Thank you. Along those lines, Teresa, and this sort of is, since you mentioned other things that may come down the pike, I understand that around late 2024, early 2025, the city is going to mandate that buildings use the bins, the large bins for the trash collection. And that will actually take away some of the parking spaces as well, particularly around buildings, high-rise and apartment buildings. So is the city going to look at all of its measures, this implementation measures in their totality before they roll out all of these plans? Or is everything just going to be thrust upon the communities, and then we have to go and beg and plead with the DOT to give people parking spaces? Because each of those big bins are likely to take up about 4 parking spaces wherever they're located for the larger buildings.
So that program is actually being run by Department of Sanitation. I will say that we are taking that into account. We are trying to look at it holistically. I think that's just part of the tools, like I said, with curb management action plan. It's the city trying to look holistically at curb demand and how to better use the curb. And so what I can say is that we are aware, and it is something that we will take into consideration when we consider any future plans for our curb management plan. But that the containerization plan is being run by Department of Sanitation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can move on. If there's nothing else, are there any questions from any of the committee members or regarding the curb management plan at this time? Any community member? Any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. And we can move on then to old business. Teresa, I wanted to thank you and your team for getting back to us with answers to all of our questions, from the last meeting. It may not have been, some of the answers may not have been what we were hoping for, but at least it shows that there's progress being made. And so thank you on that. Does any committee members have any questions regarding the responses that DOT submitted to us?
I have a
to the
quick
last meeting?
update if I can, on those
Yes,
updates that I
absolutely.
provided. So for the angle parking request on Broadway, by West 230th Street, there was a question, apparently it was parallel parking and before it was angle parking. And we actually determined that, we can restore the angle parking, and that's something that will be going in, very soon. So I wanted to provide that update.
Yay, thank you. I'm sure the residents of Marble Hill will be happy. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other old business? Yes, Ms. Sylvia.
On my,
Pet peeve, they're conducting a traffic study.
and will we see any evidence of it?
You're asking for a report on the traffic signal study for,
Yes,
I
at
believe it was
235
Oxford?
in Oxford.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we're currently doing that study. My understanding is that we should have results by the end of December, and I can follow up with the community board on what those results are, and provide an official response.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Ellen, did you have your hand up?
No, I'm good. I was,
You're stretching? Okay.
no, I was just happy that they're doing that because I live right there. Anybody else get killed?
Any committee, one second, any committee member have any other old business? Now we can move forward with new business. Any committee member, I will get to you, sir, I promise.
Is, like the highway any part of our traffic and transportation? I'm thinking of maybe there needs to be better signage or something, because it's like almost every day, like twice a day, that these trucks are getting stuck in our, Henry Hudson Parkway. The trucks are getting stuck in those overpasses every day, 2 times a day. It's really getting out of hand. They're gonna knock down those overpasses one day. It's getting really out of hand.
Well, trucks
Then
shouldn't
when
be
you
riding
enter
on
onto them, it says
the parkway.
State DOT. When you enter on there, it has signage, cars only, but there's still, the trucks are getting on there somehow. I always knew that they say they have cheap GPSs for cars instead of investing in the truck ones.
Right, they don't investigate.
But there has to be some kind of, DOT to do something to prevent them signs at every entrance flashing at them.
Ask, state DOTs, you have a particular location?
They're getting stuck in 237th and 246th every day.
237 and 246?
Mhm.
That would mean they're already on there at that point. Or are they trying to enter at those points?
They're entering, one of them did enter on 237th Street. They're even entering on before that, and they're getting stuck. They're either getting stuck on the 237th or coming back from north. They're entering on somewhere, getting on north, and getting jammed up on the 246th Street one.
So, new business for new, I see 2 hands, but we're gonna take the people in the room first. We'll get to you, Mr. Gregory and Miss Elizabeth, we'll get to you in a moment, okay? Chris Calhoun.
Larissa or Ms. Cruz, nice to see you again here at CBA. Question regarding City Bike. We had our full board meeting 2 nights ago, and to my shock, when I got home in the Marble Hill, 2 bike racks were slapped down there, which were not put in part of that presentation where they were going to go. And people in my neighborhood that know I'm on this board are jumping down my throat as I walk around. I don't even understand. Well, actually, 3 were put down. One was on the sidewalk by Marble Hill Playground at 230th and Kingsbridge Avenue. One was put on Marble Hill and 227th Street, and one was put at Marble Hill and 225th Street. And these ones that are on the street are taking up like 3 parking spaces. And this was a concern I brought up when you guys rolled out this presentation, and other members on this committee were very concerned about parking spaces being taken away, and you've heard it during this meeting as well, which had nothing to do with City Bike. But now it's like, I don't even understand why a couple of these places were selected. Like, one's in front of an apartment building, it goes to nowhere. It's like not even near anything. And another rack is just a block and a half down the block. It's like, how were these selected? And are these permanent? And you gotta see the way people are parking around there now. They're parking up against the bike racks, they're parking against fire hydrants, crosswalks, everything. It's a free-for-all over there.
Okay, so if you
And
guys
to-
are having any issues with City Bike installations, especially as they're going in, please send those locations to myself and my team. And we can have our City Bike team, our bike share team, take a look at these sites. The goal with City Bike is to have a station about 5 minutes away from each other to build the network and to increase usage of it. I know we also try to prioritize like a closer to transit options to help people in like a multimodal experience to be able to maybe get on a bike to get to the nearest train station. But if you send me those locations, I can take a look at the installations there and if we have any additional options that maybe we could pursue.
And just to piggyback what I just said, if you remember, I was one that brought up at the last meeting that we have 3 Metro North stations in this community: Marble Hill, Spuyten Duyvil, and Riverdale. Marble Hill is very close to mass transit. Riverdale and Spuyten Duyvil are in the middle of nowhere. Those would have been ideal stations to put these city bikes in. And a couple of my members on this committee concurred with me on that. I just don't understand why these got slapped down here. And I will definitely, with my committee chair, we'll get this to you, and that's all I have to say. And again, it's good to see you.
Good to see you as well. And I would say, especially if there are suggestions where you guys want to see stations, please send those to us. Currently, the way that the expansion plan was laid out, it doesn't go that far. That's why we couldn't put stations in that location, but it's something that we could consider for a future expansion. And so we'd love to get something from the community board suggesting those locations.
Thank you, Teresa. Teresa, to piggyback on what Chris just mentioned, my concern is that, you know, 8 short weeks ago, we were given a final plan and we were told that was the plan, but implementation seems to show something different. So if you can please get back to us as to why there was such a drastic change into what was put into the community that would, into the district, that would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, if you send me the locations, I'll definitely make sure that our final plan reflected that. And if it didn't, then we can go ahead and talk about where we are and if there are any alternatives.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, like my, I don't see a chat, but I wanted to make sure the community did have my contact information, or if you'd like them to go through the community board, either way, just want to make sure I can give my email address and people can always send us any questions or concerns, if that's okay. Just
because we need to keep track of them.
That's fine.
We ask
Okay,
them that
no
they go to
problem.
the office.
No problem.
Thank you, because what often happens if while we would like for people to call 311, even when you file your 311 complaint, if it's something that we need to be aware of within the district, we ask that you also send that information to the office because it helps us keep track of it and we can follow up with DOT if we determine they have not been responsive or too much time has lapsed from a particular request. Okay?
Understood.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Ms. Elizabeth Cuevas?
Hi, good evening. I am a cooperator at the Amalgamated Housing community. And we understand there are also, and this is in reference to the city bikes, we understand that we're going to be losing valuable parking in our area that's already scarce to the city bike. And I just wanted to get an update on that. Again, we hardly have any parking spaces now. And having these city bikes installed in our area is just going to make the problem worse. So I just wanted to know what are the plans for City Bike? And we're also losing parking tomorrow. I don't know if this is part of City Bike, on Orloff Avenue, from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m.
So I don't know if the community board is able to share the plan. I can also share it with the community board after this meeting to share. So that's one. It's also available on our, on the DOT website. If you, we have our actually a specific bike share link. And I can share that. And then in terms of Orloff, I'm not aware unless there's maybe like a construction project. But if you can send that information to the community board, then I can follow up with what is going on Orloff and make sure that the community is aware.
Sure.
And the City Bike Plan is on the CB8 website. So you can, there's a direct link to the final plan on the community board's website. Okay. And you can see all of the plan locations as they were presented to us at the September meeting.
And do you have a deadline that I might be able to share with my neighbors?
No, just you can review it and get back to the office. I would recommend that you get back to us sooner rather than later so we can give them a full complement as to how many people are impacted by this because there's strength in numbers.
Absolutely. Okay. I appreciate that.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Welcome. You have a question about City Bank?
No, it is something else. No business.
Go ahead, please. Please identify yourself.
Yeah, my name is Joe Ben Meir, and I'm calling about 2 dead-end sections of streets between Broadway and Major Diggin Highway. One of them is on 237th Street, just behind BJ's, and one is on 231st Street, I think, parallel to Food Town. There are all kinds of signs there that really don't seem to belong there, and they're causing problems. There are, for example, sign no parking anytime. There is signs parking only 2 hours when they are separate.
That there's a whole, they're taking the questions into consideration. But also there.
Continue.
In these 2 short segments of the dead-end street, there are all kinds of signs that don't belong there. No parking anytime, only 2-hour parking when there is their own parking lots for the businesses, and street cleaning. Those streets were not cleaned in decades probably, and it is obviously taking a lot of parking space, very valuable. And every now and then, police giving tickets. They get mad, they have to fill a quota or whatever. Give tickets. So my question is, on those 2 short dead-end streets between Broadway and Major Diggin, is it possible to remove those signs so that people can park legally? Right now, they are parked every single day. Some of them are even double parked. If you go behind BJ's, there are double parked cars. So those signs, street signs, don't make much sense. Is it possible to remove them?
If we receive a request, we can go ahead and take a look at the signage there. I will say in terms of ASP, that is something that we just follow what sanitation is able to do. So if you want to also reach out maybe to sanitation and see if they are still operating under cleaning that street. If they're not, then we can remove those signs.
So what's the next, direct to your office, the office?
Sanitation, yes. You can reach out to sanitation.
Should I to the office?
You can you can reach out to the office,
right?
To Community Board 8 and ask them to have sanitation review the matter.
Yeah, even without sanitation, there are parking lot no parking anytime.
She mentioned that a lot of those regulations are controlled by sanitation, by the.
I'm sorry, the ASP signage is controlled by sanitation. The rest of it is us. So I'm just saying for ASP to be removed, we wouldn't do that arbitrarily. We would need sanitation to tell us that they're no longer operating under cleaning that street. So that piece would have to be sanitation, but looking at the parking regulations, no parking or the 2-hour parking that you mentioned, we can go ahead and take a look at that if you want to send a request for us to review the signage. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it's not.
Recommend something that makes sense to send some pictures.
Okay, we're having cross conversations, so that's why I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes, if you can send some pictures of what you are speaking to, that would be extremely helpful, and then the office can follow up with the appropriate agency, okay? Thank you. What is Mr.
Gregory Rose.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Hi,
Okay,
you have your hand
so
raised? You have a-
yes, I have a comment about the city bikes. Okay, and I'm gonna try to keep this as short and quick as possible. Okay, so I'm talking about the areas of Sedgwick between Fort Independence and Van Cortlandt Park South, which is very close to the previous person who had made a comment about them, and also going west to like about Broadway between like Van Cortlandt Park South through like pretty much like around 238 to or Fort Independence ish, somewhere around there. Like, okay, that area is already extremely congested in terms of parking. There have been times, several, if not many times, that I've circled and looped around for between 1 and 3 hours looking for parking. There have been other times when I have had to resort to pulling over in a technically illegal parking spot and sleeping in my car in order to make up for some sleep while waiting for spots to free up. If I understand this whole thing about, oh, take mass transit, give the MTA more money, or take a city bike, get exercise, whatever. But okay, there are already so many areas in that area where it's no parking anytime, or whatever, no standing anytime, whatever it may be. Why not put the city bikes in those areas, being that people cannot park in there already? City bikes by a put a like city bikes by maybe a little bit close to a fire hydrant, so it doesn't disturb parking that is already extraordinarily extremely scarce. Like this will only, and also the cost of living over the last 10 to 15 years, whether it's people renting or people living in the Mitchell-Lama co-ops, like Amalgamated, like Park Reservoir, the cost of living has basically doubled over the last 10 to 15 years. So you look at that, and then now you're going to put city bikes on taking up, replacing parking spots that are already scarce. And it's not saying that people get cars to be selfish. No, people have loved ones, have family, whatever, who live far away, that if you take mass transit or public transportation to go visit them, it'll take 3 to 5 hours each way. Trust me, I've done it. I've gone.
Mr.
There were
Rosenberg,
many years when
can you,
I've traveled from Sedgwick
Mr.
to
Rosenberg?
Rockland via public transportation, and it usually would take 3 to 5 hours each way. That's
Mr.
why I eventually
Rosenberg.
got a car. So the thing about this is, like, if you want to put city bikes, whatever, there's only so.
Well, we're going to have to mute you, okay? Thank you.
So just one thing I want to flag about Mr. Rosenberg's comments is just in terms of fire hydrants, we would never put a station in a fire hydrant location. Those are supposed to be clear for FDNY access, so that's not something that we would consider. Just wanted to be
Could
clear
you
about
vote
that.
his hand? Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Spiegel.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cruz, for being here. I also live in Amalgamated, and I'm very, very concerned about these surprises. I have no idea if there were any public meetings about where these city bikes would be. I was not aware of them. I don't know how they were approved. These spots are supposed to be 5 minutes from train stations. On Van Cortlandt Park South, they're more like 10 to 15-minute walk from a train station. They're nowhere near a train station. It seems to me that first you put the bikes in, and then you see how many people are affected by this. And you're telling me now at this meeting to let you know if people are affected. You had told one of the earlier speakers that. But the bikes are going to be there. They're finished putting them in tomorrow, my understanding is. I sure hope they're not putting more bikes on Orloff Avenue. So I'm really upset about this. Oh, and you want to know how many people are affected? At this meeting, the names of people I know from both Amalgamated and Park Reservoir, and these are just people I happen to recognize their names, are about 24, 25 people, almost half of the people, in fact, more than half of the people that are left now. So these people came just for this reason. Half the people at this meeting are here. They're not very happy about being surprised about getting city banks right where we don't need them. Parking is horrendous. That much I can tell you. They should take parking availability into effect. Obviously, the people from Citibank seem to have just closed their eyes. Okay, my time's up. Thank you.
Thank you. We apologize for the obnoxious bell.
Well.
Ms. Flaherty? Have her on mute. Okay, there we go. Unmute yourself, please. Ms. Flaherty?
Okay, I got you. I am part of the amalgamated community also. And my first question is, why do we need those bikes if we have bikes on Golden Avenue? That's number one. Number two, whomever came up with the idea did it wrong. You know why? That's a very dangerous area for you to put all those bikes. And number three, I mean, how many people from our community are really going to use the bikes? We need our cars. Some of us have knee problems. Some of us go to work. And it is true, we spend hours as it is looking for parking. And I'm completely against it. I don't understand why we need bikes right across from a school. The way these cars coming up the hill, you know, somebody trying to take out the bike, they're going to get hit. Whose idea was it? And why is it that in a community that is supposed to be a private, we have to come up with the bikes when we already have bikes on Golden Avenue? We are next to which train station? To my understanding, none. We only next to the buses. So why do we have to put up with the bike? Don't we have enough as it is? I mean, if you go by the school on Golden Avenue, they have a whole rack of bikes next to Lehman College. So why is it that we have to put up with the bike and take away our parking space because all of a sudden corporate greed decides that no, they want more money? And let's be realistic. How many of our kids in our community are really going to rent those bikes? $5 a day? Really? We don't need the bikes. I don't understand why we have it. And why are you taking away parking that we need? This is not, you know, I've been through this even around my job. You don't lose 1 or 2 parkings. You lose 13, 14, 15 parkings. Why, if we already have that bikes on Golden Avenue by the school? Anybody who's interested in the bike can walk over there and take the bus. They can take the bus. It's ridiculous. Okay, you can now
you.
mute me.
Ms. Minsky? Please unmute yourself. Laura Minsky?
Yes, thank you. I'm also from the Amalgamated, and I just saw the signs today. And I'm really not understanding why this area was chosen. There's an area right across the street from a nursing home, St. Patrick's, and then another one a couple of blocks further down, Van Cortlandt Park. Now, we are a NORC, which is a naturally occurring retirement community.
Yes.
Yes. So, excuse me, but what is the reason for putting all those bikes here? We are a block away from at least 3 bus lines. For those of us who can walk, we're in walking distance of at least 2 city subways. So who made these decisions and how much do they get paid for putting in these bikes where they are not necessary? And I'm lucky, I have a parking spot in one of our garages. So, but I know people who have moved out of the community because they couldn't spend all night looking for parking. So I really would like to know who made these decisions, how much they get paid for that. Thank you.
Deputy Commissioner Cruz?
Sure. So the expansion plan was created in 2019 and this area was identified. And so that is where the genesis for the city bike expansion came from. This was something that was created back in 2019 to expand city bike in the Bronx. We started in CB1 and we've been working our way up. This is the last portion of this current expansion plan, which is happening in CB6 and CB8.
And Deputy Commissioner Cruz, has the city taken into consideration that the whole world has changed since the initial studies in 2019 and the initial request of 2019? So people use their cars differently, and a lot of people who actually would use the transit system are no longer using the transit system. So is that being taken into consideration with the implementation?
So something that we've actually done for the Bronx is that our stations are actually significantly smaller than stations in Manhattan and Brooklyn, taking into consideration trying to lessen the parking loss and understanding that the community feels very strongly about trying to retain as much parking as possible. The other thing about City Bike is that we do our best to try to pick as many sidewalk locations as we can. There are locations where it's just not technically feasible. But the reason I mentioned that if you guys want to send any of these locations, we can reevaluate is just because we want to, like when we came to present the final plan for September, we did as much analysis as we could, but we want to hear from the community if there are any questions or concerns. I don't want anyone to feel like we can't, make any changes if we need to. And so we need to be aware of these locations in order for us to consider any sort of proposed change.
Okay, thank you. That's extremely helpful. And I also note that during the presentation, both in September and earlier this year, that DOT mentioned that they were going to use as many daylighted spaces as possible. So this way it would not impact parking, and that does not seem to have happened. So we will definitely get back to DOT with information regarding some of those spaces, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Tanasi, can you please?
Oh, would you look at that? I thought I would never get a chance. So hi, I'll try and keep it fast because I'm at a work event and I wanted to come on this meeting specifically to say the city bikes are being requested. I live in the Amalgamated. I have a car. I understand parking is a huge fucking issue, but city bikes have been an issue too. We don't live next to any trains. It takes 15 to 20 minutes to get to any of them. people have been asking for this for a while, so I understand parking it's not good. We need a parking solution for sure. But the silent people in this meeting, you know, the people who didn't even know about this meeting, they're requesting them. It's like $8 a month. A lot of people use them. A lot of people ask for them. It's that's pretty much all I got to say. But I just wanted to be another voice in the room and say that people do like city bikes. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Newman?
Let me unmute. Am I unmuted now?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, but I hate bikes. Anyway, long story short, I'm also from Park Reservoir. I'm those people who come around and wait 2 to 3 hours for parking. I have slept in my car. So my one question I had was, is this reversible? And luckily, Darissa was very nice to say that maybe there is a way to change it. But my question is, the community board, you guys represent us, right? So if we get signatures, if I go around and get 150 signatures of every single person living in this area and bring it to the community board, is that enough to get rid of all the city bikes that's taking up our parking spaces? Obviously, we're very, very passionate about this because this is a super, super desperate situation. We have so many places we can't park. Even on Cedric, there's some, I don't know what it is, a bunch of parking, which I never see a car there in front of the library, former library, right? There's no library there anymore. And yet there's no spots. I mean, it's always left like you can't park here. So you can't park here, you can't park there. And now we have city bikes. And you know, before the city bikes came on the scene here, I remember seeing 2 of them just thrown in the grass. And I was wondering, where did they come from? And we didn't have them here yet. So I don't know if somebody took one from Manhattan or somewhere else or South Bronx. Like you guys said, they started down there. But I don't know how people think that this is going to be a feasible thing in this area. I don't know. But I just want to know, if we get enough signatures, can this just go away? And that's it.
To answer your question, Ms. Newman, the community board takes all matters into consideration, and all matters, regardless of a position of an individual, are forwarded to the respective departments for further review and analysis. So if you obtain signatures, we will be happy to put those forward to DOT. But more importantly than signatures, if you could also give us some pictures and clearly identify the areas that are in question, the locations that are in question, that would be extremely helpful. Because continuing to say we have a number of them doesn't help us, because not everyone, the community board is representative of the entire district, so some people may not be familiar with the area. Okay?
I'm
Thank
sorry, and
you.
as part of that request, just wondering, it sounded like there was an outdated regulation by the library. Happy to take a look at that and see if we can restore any spots there. If you can provide that location, we'd be happy to take a look at that as well.
Thank you, Teresa. Evan's iPhone. Evan's iPhone.
Oh, hello. Yes. Hi, I'm Evan Robinson. I live in the Amalgamated as well. I'll just basically add to what everyone else has already said. I have spent, countless evenings driving around looking for a parking spot. I do like riding bicycles, but I do own my own bicycle. I am not really in a position, given my line of work, that I can just ride a bike to the subway. I'm a musician. I need to carry equipment. Very often I need to take my car to gigs and then come back late at night. I would really, in the best of all possible worlds, I would take mass transit, but I can't. So that is just the reality. And unfortunately, it would be really nice to have city bikes up in our neighborhood, but our neighborhood simply cannot accommodate it. And, that is just the reality that I think everyone, the DOT needs to understand. In the best of all possible worlds, it would be really nice to have them up there, but our neighborhood is just unable to accommodate that service. And really, I really would hope that the DOT thinks long and hard about reversing their decision on this, because it's just going to cause way more problems than any benefits it might yield.
Thank you very much. Janisa Munoz. going to go back to you because you were actually the first one to raise your hand for new business. So Ms. Munoz, if you can mute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm just adding the same thing as everybody else is saying. I am against city bikes. I love biking. It's like my favorite thing to do. But losing parking in this neighborhood, it's just we can't afford it. I mean, I spend hours. I have two little ones. I have to use my car to take them to school. When I even come home from picking them up or even come home from dropping them off to their school, finding parking here, it's a headache. It's really bad. So losing parking because of bikes that I'm pretty sure, like other people have said, we've seen bikes here thrown in the floor. Like I'm pretty sure nobody's around here would be using those bikes. I did hear someone say that they're for and that they were requesting it, but I really doubt that it's a high demand in this neighborhood because everybody has to drive. We have numbers of buses and transit that we could walk to and even take. So biking around here, I don't see it a use. Losing parking around here is not a good idea. So I am adding more to the stress that would cost to everyone living here for a long period of time, that it honestly is making everybody want to move from the area, which is unfair to the people that really like the area and live here for so long. So adding these bikes is just causing more problems and headaches for everyone. So I am for everyone. So if they could please reverse that. If tomorrow that's what they're planning to do, if that could be canceled, even better. I mean, I know that things doesn't work from one day to the other, but you know, this was all a surprise to all of us. Like we got this notice yesterday that we couldn't even park today. Like tomorrow, I don't even have an idea where I'm going to park my car and then to pick it up because we have to move this car by 5 o'clock in the morning. So it's just taking away parking in this neighborhood is not good. It's not a good thing for us. If that's the plan to make us better, you're making us worse. That's just what I had to, add to.
Ms. Colleen Hanley.
Hi, how you doing? I'm a neighbor of Janissa. I actually served on the community board for 2 years as well, and I agree with Janissa and the other detractors who are stating that city bikes is a bad idea. Putting city bikes in this area is a bad idea. I'm actually walking my dogs right now. 3 entire blocks of Orloff Avenue will not be available for parking as of 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. We just found out about this today. Why does the DOT think that this is proper to do in a working class area where people need parking spaces? Can the woman?
Just to clarify, the Orloff Avenue removal is not for a city bike station. I'm just trying to verify what work is actually taking place, but that is not related to city bike.
Thank you. Mr. Ludwig?
Actually, I'm sorry, before we continue, I just got confirmation. We're actually resurfacing Orloff Avenue. That is why the cars have to be removed so that we can mill and pave. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Ludwig.
I appreciate the follow-up.
Thank you for entertaining me tonight. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to make 2 comments. Regarding the city bikes, we have a large area of the reservoir that has an area between probably more than 20 feet between the parking curb and the main wall of the reservoir. Anywhere along the south end, the west end of the reservoir, they can put the city bikes up against the wall there. Anywhere along that side of the reservoir, the western end. Even the northern end of the reservoir, they have at least 15, 20 feet from the curb where the cars park to the main retaining wall on the reservoir. They can put them there on and get them out of the street. So anyway, so that was my suggestion for the city bikes. But I just want to add, there was a gentleman that was talking about the trucks getting onto the Henry Hudson Parkway. Okay, so I have a suggestion for that. At the entryways to the parkway, they can put a spring-loaded pole. That the pole would be like an L-shaped, going over the roadway where a truck that is too high for the bridge would hit the pole, and then the pole could activate the red light at the end of the entrance lane, stopping the traffic from getting onto the roadway. That's just a suggestion. Maybe DOT will look into my suggestions and take them for some consideration. That's really all I got right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ludwig. We will pass your information on to New York State DOT. Michelle from Amalgamated.
Hi, thank you very much. Hopefully you can hear me. Like many others, I also live at the Amalgamated, and I'm glad that it was mentioned that we are in Newark, which means that at least 50% of the population that live amongst 1,500 apartments are senior citizens. So it seems like this might not be the best population in terms of marketing for City Bike. And then also, too, along Golden Avenue, I've been living in this neighborhood quite a long time. Along Golden Avenue, you know, when I first moved back 15 years ago, and like many others, I could drive a car and park a car before I could even really drive one because of this neighborhood and the lack of parking. But the point is, Golden Avenue, which is pretty desolate, has been overrun with school buses and tractor trailers. So that used to be, when I first moved back, where I would park my car. And I literally would be taking my life in my own hands, talking to somebody as I'm walking home. You know, so areas like that, Golden Avenue, which is basically where the reservoir is, which is the gentleman before me who just spoke, there's space there. And then, you know, if you're talking about Orloff Avenue and Van Cortlandt Park South, which is where I live, you walk out to the corner, there's the 10 bus. You walk up one block, there's the number 1 and the 2 bus. You want to go to the number 4 train? Get on the number 1 or the 2 bus. Whoop, you get off, you get a transfer, you're done. You want to go down to the number 1 train? You can get on the number 10 or the number 1 or the number 2. So there's plenty of buses in this area, mass transportation that could be utilized. You know, and I'm an avid cyclist, but what I find is on Van Cortlandt Park South, when I'm walking up and down that hill, the bikes are flying. The bikes now that are already around here are flying. There's so many elderly people around here. Every day I cringe thinking about these elderly people that are going to get run over by these bicycles, and then these bike lanes that now have become, I'm going to stop, a means for motorcycles and mopeds. So what's DOT doing about that?
The motorbikes and the bicyclists that are going the wrong way or on the sidewalks, that's an enforcement issue. So that's not within the purview of DOT. That's actually an NYPD safety matter. So if you see something, that should be reported, and you can also attend the public safety meetings for the Community Board 8 and express your concerns there. And those meetings are held each month at the 50th precinct. So you have it's next Tuesday. The next meeting is, what's the date, Mary Ellen? The 21st, November 21st, at 7 p.m. at the 50th precinct is the public safety meeting, and that is 50th precinct, yes. Where you can have your voice heard on that matter. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. Anna Stephen Robinson.
Hello. Yeah, I would just first off like to add my opposition to the city bike plan. And I know apparently one person in our neighborhood would like to have city bikes, but that I think for the most part, it's really going to be a bad idea for most everybody here. I would like to know why this is the first that we're hearing about this. And also, if Deputy Commissioner Cruz said, you know, to provide our feedback, you also labeled this as the final plan. I would also like to know where the actual map of where the city bikes, the planned city bike stations are going. I looked on the Community Board 8 website, and there was a feedback map that looked like it could only accept feedback up through May, I think it was. So is there an actual map that shows the planned stations? And then my fourth thing that I'd like to say is that another possibility to put them would be in that parking lot down in Van Cortlandt Park, the parking lot that's kind of on, basically if you walk down the long stairs off of Gale and then go under the Deegan.
So at least in terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So, I would like to add that DOT has made a couple of presentations throughout the year, and they also made their final presentation before the bikes were installed at the September 2020 meeting, Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. As you heard earlier, the committee members expressed concern about some of the placements of the bikes because those bikes were not part of the plan that were presented to us, which is why we are going to ensure that we get back to DOT with certain locations that were not in scope at September 21 and find out and try to determine how those locations were determined. And to the gentleman's point earlier, we also should be able to use some of the space that is adjacent to the reservoir and take some of the bikes out of the street and onto the sidewalk, because that would be a better location and it will help mitigate some of the headaches that the community is experiencing. Teresa?
I would just add to that. I think you covered most of what I was going to say. I would just add that I can reshare the final plan just to make sure the community board has it. And if you guys would like to share it, I can also share a link that can be shared publicly where it can be found on our website.
Thank you. Mr. Weinberg.
Yes, good evening. I hope everyone is doing well. Okay, so I went through this before in Jackson Heights. That community has completely been taken over. When you guys do the demographics, has anybody, this is not Williamsburg or some hipster area. This is an elderly community. What happens is that, take a look, is that who is on the board in these buildings. You're gonna see it's all elderly, people who have lived here 30, 40, 50 years. And what happens is that the demographics is the #1 thing that people should look at when it comes to bike lanes. That's the #1 thing that they should look at. You take a look, we don't have any hipsters in this neighborhood. Maybe a few hipsters are moving to Riverdale, but the amalgamated area, most of the people who have lived here are original tenants here, many of them, 30, 40 years. And I'm looking, it absolutely is a waste of money. And also, you know, what people don't realize is that there is a conspiracy going on because the people who are contributing to many of these bikes are Lyft, Uber, because the less cars are out there, the more you need them. And you take a look who contributes to city bikes. Well, that you look at the big picture and there is a conspiracy, but this is I don't care about Williamsburg because I understand the hipsters don't have money to buy a car and pay insurance. These people in this neighborhood depend on cars. And ever since we eliminated parking requirements, right now, when a building is built, all you have to do is provide 1 parking spot for 15 apartments. So that means we have so many new buildings were built in an area already that doesn't have enough parking, and then you're taking away the few parking spots. And also, what do you do during the winter? How many people ride the bike during snowy weather? 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And what happens is that all comes into play. Now, I hit just on some of the points, but I'm sure it hit home with many of the people who are listening to this. And, but the big picture is the demographics do not require us to have here. And if this would be, you would be in Williamsburg, you would have 100 hipsters here telling you that we need this. But you can see for every person, we had one person who said that we need this, and pretty much everybody else doesn't. So, Ms. Derissa Cruz, does anybody do homework on the demographics when you do bikes? Because this is probably the oldest community in Queens. I'm sorry, in Bronx.
Mr. Weinberger, please conclude your remarks.
I just did.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I can get back to you on how we consider any sort of demographic data in our city bike selection.
Chuck Merdler? Can you unmute yourself?
Madam Chair, I think there's an underlying issue that finally has to be addressed, or at least thought about. In my view, based on what I have seen, the philosophy of this Department of Transportation is to eliminate automobiles in the city of New York. What it has done is contract them by bicycle lanes, by painting on the streets, instead of filling potholes, which are profuse in the city of New York, which are DOT's responsibility. It paints, it does that all the time. And so my point to you is the following. I think it is time, both at a community board level throughout the city of New York and in the city council, that under oath, we take a good hard look as to whether or not it isn't a fact that all of these things are being done for a single purpose, and that is to minimize automobile traffic in the city of New York. And by so doing, turn New York City into what San Francisco is today, a ghost town. And that's where the city is heading with DOT's present plans. Now, I know what I say will bother some people. I personally love bikes. I used to be an active member of AYH and the rest. But this is troublesome to me. Troublesome to me because of the philosophy that underlines each of these bits and pieces, and nobody's willing to turn over the rock and look underneath it. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merdler. Your points are well taken. And we appreciate your input, and we certainly will raise the issue in greater detail with the commissioner, with the new commissioner, Mr. Perez, and I am scheduled to meet with him shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna do a new speaker, 'cause I think yes, Ms. Thomas, Shantae Thomas. Hi, Ms. Babur.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, sorry. So, thank you for the time. I'm also in Amalgamated, so I will try my best not to repeat anything that I've already heard so far. I want to underscore that I also agree that it's a bad idea. I thank Mr. Weinberger for bringing up the weather issue because that was on my list to mention. I also just want to say, I mean, I ride a bike as well, and personally, and I don't even ride my bike up and down the hills because it's just dangerous. It's just dangerous in this area to be riding your bike down Van Cortlandt Hill or coming up. I can't even make it up the hill, without an oxygen tank. So I have to get off my bike and walk it up the hill. So I don't know who's necessarily riding around the area. I assume most people would be taking it into the park, maybe for a leisurely ride or something. But now I'm hearing all of this, like they're putting it here so people can get to transportation. And I'm like, they really need a city bike to get to train. You're going to pay $5 to get to the train station to pay $2.90. Like it just, my brain can't wrap my head around the cost effectiveness of taking the bike to the train. If you want to be health conscious, you would either walk or just, you know, try to figure out another way. But in any event, I just wanted to point out two things.
Sorry.
Asking community members to do some kind of analysis to see if we could add back spots. Like when somebody mentioned earlier about the library that used to exist on Sedgwick. I understand that feedback is helpful. You guys can't go out and, you know, be everywhere and see everything. But I mean, has anyone ever said, let's do an analysis and see where we can add back the spots? You know, because we're taking away spots. So let's take a day, look around and see what signs can be pulled down and see what we can give back to the community instead of asking people who are working, who are maybe have children and other responsibilities. If it's your job to go out into the neighborhood and find places to put city bikes, can we go into the neighborhood and find places where we can add back the spots? Because something that no longer exists is now being used for that purpose. Like I just putting the onus on us to have to do that sometimes it seems a little bit.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to please conclude your remarks. No one is putting the onus on the community. What we are asking the community to do is to give us the information so that we can communicate that information to the proper individuals.
The only thing I'm asking too is for the DOT or whatever entities, if they could also do the same. That's all I'm asking. But the last point
Thank
that
you.
I wanted to make.
With that, we can move on to Ms. Babur.
That I don't know if it's a sanitation.
Natalie
Sorry,
Babur.
and as a point of clarity, I just want to clarify that when I mentioned that we are trying to create a multimodal experience, that's not the only reason. I was just adding that like we do like to have them near train stations. We love to have access to other modes of transportation. We also love for people to take rides in parks. It was just one example of how one of the criteria we use when citing city bike stations. I apologize if that was unclear.
For the clarification, Teresa. Natalie Babur. You're still there, please unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I also am a part of Amalgamated Community, and I agree with everything that was mentioned this evening in reference to the city bikes. But I don't understand why the DOT or the community board but let us know exactly where the city bikes are going to be located, if they can, because that's the first thing we need to find out, exactly where the city bikes are going to be located. Because as someone mentioned earlier, they're going to be located down by the highway. It might not affect us that much, but the first thing we need to do is find out exactly where they're going to be located. And if they are going to affect us, then the next thing we need to do as a community is get a petition together and present it to the DOT to get rid of it. Or like someone else just mentioned, maybe open up more parking spaces, because the parking in this community is definitely atrocious. Now, I am fortunate enough to have a parking space, but I do sympathize with the other community members who are not fortunate enough to have a parking space. And I have been there as well before I got a parking space. So that's the first thing we need to do, is find out exactly where the location is. And I don't understand why the DOT can't tell us where that is, being that we're having a hard time trying to find out exactly where the bikes are going to be located. So we need to find that out first and foremost, and then move forward with our next step, Amalgamated as a community. That's what we need to do. So that's my point.
But to clarify, you can mute her. To clarify, DOT has committed, and we will ask them, it's a very simple process. When Teresa gets back to her office tomorrow, she can email the location to the board office, and the board office will post that information on the board website, and we can also distribute it to the community members so that via email, that to individuals that are on our list service, and then this way everyone has the same information and is receiving the same information at the same time. Okay? Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, the last thing I would like to note as far as new business is concerned is that there is a hearing on Monday, the 20th, regarding the open, the open restaurants? The proposed rules for the open restaurants. There's a public hearing and the community is encouraged to participate. This information, when the office sends around the link to the DOT bike share program, they can also include the link to the Department of Transportation's open hearing for the sidewalk sheds.
Yeah, we can definitely provide that.
Here, what did you say?
And waste.
Definitely provide. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Anyone else, any committee member have any questions? Mr. Weinberger, is this a new question that you have?
It's not a new question. I just wanted to stress that Lyft, the company, invested over $100 million into the city bikes in order to promote city bikes, because they do not want people to be able to have cars, and therefore they invested heavily into city bikes because bikes are being eliminated everywhere. And just to stress enough to Derissa Cruz, would you be so kind? Because you said, you know, when you want to avoid, it's a general rule in sales. When you want to avoid a question, I'm going to look into it and get back to you. I guarantee you none of us will ever be gotten back to. So can you, I mean, obviously, this is your career. So you should be able to answer this question. You said you're going to do a question regarding demographics. I want to know, in an area that's arguably the toughest area to find parking in New York City, who did the demographics that there is a need for this? You should be able to answer this because it's not rocket science. You work for the department.
Mr. Weinberg, I must stop you because that question has been asked and answered several times throughout this presentation. What I would ask Ms. Cruz to do, and what I will make sure is reflective in our comments from the community board, is that you've heard a number of people with major concerns. This is also a prime opportunity for DOT to look at spreading the city bike program out to areas that were not included, areas within the district that were not included in the initial rollout, because there does appear to be a heavy concentration of bikes, and these are more bikes than what the community board was expecting, and it would be in the DOT's best interest to very clearly look at putting the bikes west of Irwin Avenue, and I know that that has been something that has been brought up on several occasions, and now is the right time for DOT to look at that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. And I would say that anything the community board sends to us, we will send a response. I am here to listen to you all. I'm not going to not listen to what you guys have to say or respond. I just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. And I hope the community board understands that as well.
We do. Thank you. Mr. Evan, you have the last word.
Hello. Yeah, I just had one additional point to make about, it's already been pretty well established that as a practical matter, to ride these bicycles to the subway in most cases is not going to work for our community. Ms. Cruz, you also mentioned access to the park. And I would say that generally speaking, people do not enter Van Cortlandt Park from up in our neighborhood because of the way it's located. Although we are right next to the park, in fact, you have to walk down that long flight of stairs to get into the park, or there is another trail at the very at the other end over by Mosholu Parkway. But even that would be kind of impractical because very, very steep trail, and You could ride down on it. I've done it on my bike, but riding back up would be quite the effort on one of those city bikes. It's on my road bike, on my lightweight road bike to do that. You really would have to be in shape. So as a practical matter, just entering, using that as somebody, just using that to enter the park wouldn't even work because of the way that you really can't get into the park directly off of Van Cortlandt Park South, the way that things are situated. So that is just a big consideration. And certainly anyone from not in the area who just wants to come and visit the park is not going to be doing that, accessing the park through our neighborhood. They will almost certainly be doing it from 242nd Street or some most likely off of the subway from over there off of Broadway. But as a practical matter, to enter the park directly from our neighborhood is just about impossible. To enter the main part of the park, you can kind of walk along the periphery of it, but generally speaking, you have to walk down a very long flight of stairs to get into the park, which is also my wife had actually previously suggested that the parking lot, which is probably administered by the City Parks Department, would actually be an ideal spot to put those bikes because there's plenty of room there and a lot of people could certainly benefit from them down there.
Thank you,
So I'll
Mr.
just
Evans.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Does any committee member have any other business they wish to bring at this time? I thank everyone for your time this evening. Derisa, I thank you for your patience. We look forward to receiving the additional information from DOT. Please send that over to us and we can ask the office to publish that information, to share that information with the community tomorrow. I would like to wish everyone a happy holiday season. Look forward to seeing everyone at December's meeting. And with that, if there's no other business, may I have a motion to adjourn? Second. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Stay safe, be well, enjoy Thanksgiving.